I'm just going to talk to the video real fast. Okay, so you're going to go in with 6B pencil, and you're going to fill in the darkest parts that we labeled with the D's. And so you're keeping the shape. So and for everyone in the room as well, you might want to outline it so that you're refining as you go, at least for the dark part. Circular motion, newspaper padding. And then I'm double checking, is there anywhere that I didn't value map? Usually along the curves is what kind of shows up in tiny little areas that maybe are too much to value map. Okay, thanks. And I'd really look at the top of the jar as well. Are there any like dark streaks at the top? Okay, so if you're not here, you'll take a pause and take a look at the next step. All right, so for the medium values, you're probably going to have to erase the M right before you shade that part. But what I'm also looking for is, like, I have areas in here, so here's the white paper running through, and everything above the white paper should be slightly darker. So, but it's not super dark, so I'm just going to lighten my pressure with my 6B. So this is my white paper edge. So I am going to outline it, and then I'm going to fade it up so that everything above the white paper is darker in value. And then for the cloth in your actual still life, minus the purple, I'm not quite sure about the purple cloth, but because we haven't ever used that color yet. But for all the other values and all the other colors, it's probably darker above the cloth. And then I kind of look at, like in here for me, this is the area of the keyboard, and so it's not as dark as these mediums. So you're going to have to do some comparing. So right before I shade my medium area, I'm still going to like gently outline just a little bit and then match that value. And so if it's too dark, you could switch out pencils, or you just try to adjust your pressure. So now you're going to put your mediums in there. And if you have two mediums next to each other, take a look and decide which one is the darkest of the two, or which one is darker. We're still avoiding the L's and the W's. All right, so then you're going to take a pause, take a look at the screen real fast, and then you're going to put in value where the L's are, and then we're going to go back and add value next to the W's. But for the L's, definitely, I would switch to 2B pencil, and right before I add value in that area, I'm going to erase out, and I'm still holding my 2B pencil like in the middle, because you don't want it to be very dark. And if it's a dark heavy outline, lighten it up. And if there's an area above the white paper that you haven't added any value, you can just go along the edge, add a little bit of value with 2B, and fade up. So if there's any shapes that are not white, they're not light, they're just there, I usually just add a little bit of value to them. And when you're up near the mouth or the rim, I would look on either side of the threading to see if there's some light value you can add, or little pieces of value. Okay, guys, we're going to take a pause real fast for those of you that are ready, and then I'll give you a couple minutes to catch up. All right, so for your highlights, we want the surrounding area to have some value, so it looks shiny white and not just like an outline of a value. So I have this like area up here, it's all like a whole streak of a highlight. It has the W in there. And so I'm going to leave the W in it for until after I blend. So I know like, hey, don't blend in there. But with my yellow wooden pencil, I'm going to go along the edge of my highlight and fade out. So everywhere you see a shiny highlight, you're going to use your old school wooden pencil, gently go along the edge, fade out. So you're kind of redefining where your highlights are. You're refining highlights before we shade. Alright, so it should look rather shapy, and you have value fading out from your highlights. So give you guys a couple minutes to catch up, and you're really making sure that you have value above the white paper, fading up, or above the tabletop, fading up. And if you have extra time, if your shapes look kind of messy, with regular pencil, I'm just kind of cleaning up my dark shapes on the edges, because we're going to keep them when we blend. Or if it looks really liney, add a layer in the other opposite direction to kind of refine your shading before we blend. So I really check the corners, like where it curves in the back, corners where it curves, because like if you have a rounded kind of shadow or even a highlight, it helps to make it look rounded. So I check up top here, check at the bottom. It's like layers of glass you're looking through, so it usually has some dark value in there. All right, we're gonna do another minute or so, and then we'll take some notes on blending, and then we're gonna start blending. If you're just waiting, especially if you have your old paper bag blender, I'm just looking at like where's my shadow, and you can start doing your shadow if you want, if you're just sitting there. We'll add on to our shadow once the blender gets dirty. Okay. So even if you're not here, you're gonna take a pause, we're gonna take our notes, and I'll demonstrate blending, and then we're blending. All right, so we already did step 7. As we're adding in the darkest values, we're looking for small areas that you may not have value mapped and put them on there. Okay, so step 8 is to blend the value shapes first. So we're gonna underline value shapes first, and we're gonna maintain clean edges. Step 9, so after I blend all the things that have a shape to it, then we're going to go back and gently, we call it gray down, where we're going to add some tone of gray to everything except for the shiny white parts. So what does that look like? We're looking for shapes of value first. We're keeping the shapes, maintaining clean edges of the shapes, and then we're going to gray down everything else that's not a highlight, but we still want range of value. So I'm going to do like this area because I do have some areas that aren't labeled. There's really nothing there. So my first step would be to blend my darkest values first. Then I would go back and lighten my pressure, circular motion for my medium values. Those have a shape to them, kind of fades out. Okay, so then in this area, along my highlight, get a clean edge, I'm going to super lighten my pressure, circular motion, and I'm going to give it a tone of gray in just the area where there's like not a shape. But if there's a shape to it, I kind of outline it. And then fade down. So you do want to blend section by section. You don't want to like blend over the whole entire thing. You're going to start with things that have a shape. So since glass is smooth, spending a good amount of time blending for smooth value is a little more important. It'll make it look like the texture it is. If it's a light valued area, make sure that you're adjusting your pressure with the blender. Still circular motion, just less pressure. So again, nothing is left white except for the extreme highlights. Everything else has some tone of gray on it. because you're checking for smoothness and value. Do you still have the shapes? They probably look a little bit fuzzy by now. Then we're going to add another layer to the darkest and do some refining. And then we'll erase out highlights. Then we have like one more step after that. Because remember, nothing should be white except for your super shiny white parts. Everything else should have a tone of gray on it. And if it looks liney in the dark, it's going to look really liney in the light. So you might have to do another, if you're just sitting there, maybe you're spending a little more time blending for smoothness. Alright, guys, we're going to take a pause. We're going to take a couple notes. I'm going to show you how to refine a little bit, and we're going to go off padding after this. Okay, so part of refining is step 10. This is where your grade goes from like a B to an A, because you're going to go back and add another layer to the dark areas, and that helps with your range of value grade. At the same time, and this is with mechanical pencil, so I would say step 10 and 11, we'll off to the side. Mechanical pencil. That way you're kind of cleaning up edges at the same time. We are going to refine any values that are blurred or smudged, meaning we're going to kind of redefine the edge between the white paper and the background. If there's any edges of shapes that need to be redefined, we'll do that. We are going to make sure that edges are clean and crisp, but not outlined. And then we're going to erase out of the shiny parts, etc. All right, so off padding. So remove your newspaper padding. And now you're going to have to just kind of get it smooth by hand. In the rim is the part that I would say probably always needs the most because it's such tiny detail. So I'm going to go back and hold my mechanical pencil in the middle. I'm looking for shadows underneath. I can kind of re-outline and then fade in. Redefining your edges of the ellipses, so I kind of outline and then fade in. If you need to blend again, you can, but the idea is to try not to blend again. While I'm there too, I look at like, are there any smudges outside of my contour outlines that I can clean up? And then I'm also going to erase the W out of the highlights and kind of clean up my highlights. So you're doing multiple things at once. You're cleaning up edges of dark values, adding another layer with mechanical pencil, cleaning up edges, erasing out highlights. And then in the rim, I also look for, is there any areas with the pencil or with the mechanical pencil eraser that are slightly lighter but not shiny, shiny white that I can erase out? Usually along the edges or tops of the threading. So if you don't have to blend, don't blend with the adding the second dark layer. And if you see any other like really light streaks, you can add them in. Otherwise, we're gonna definitely add them lighter. So I usually look for the glass curves where it's a little thicker. Sorry, that's my phone. Okay guys, I'm gonna have you pause. I'm gonna show you the last step. We'll take notes on it tomorrow and we'll take a look at your feedback because you're gonna turn this thing in. Actually, 2 of the last steps. All right, so this is all the, like the shiny white parts obviously are on the outside of the glass, but we wanna make most of this stuff look like it's behind a layer of glass. And so you guys call it reflected light, but it's like streaks that happen on the outside of the glass but aren't super shiny white. So you can use mechanical pencil eraser. Usually I like to use the pencil eraser that's on the pencils or your pink eraser. Tomorrow you guys are going to get new pink erasers as well, so you have nice sharp ones for the glass in your still life. All right, so I usually look at where it curves. So for me it's like more like in the middle here, and I'm just literally gonna erase streaks on top of what I have. And then I'm looking more at the top as well. They should be parallel to the sides, and they usually happen over detail. So it's like there's a whole layer of glass on the outside. Sometimes near highlights you'll see other streaky areas. I don't really mess with the rim. If you want to erase streakiness in the rim, use your mechanical pencil eraser. And then as soon as you're done with that, I'm fine if you don't have a cast shadow, it's okay. Name and period. On the bottom right. But we're going to take 4 more minutes to refine, clean up. If you want extra time, you can come in. Or you can spend a little bit of time in class tomorrow. So I also look at like where the glass curves. Are there any little light streaky areas where it curves? Just draw it on there. So it's those subtle streaks on the outside that looks like layers of glass, like shininess on top of detail. So you put all the detail in, you maintain all clean edges, and then we're going to make it fuzzy in the end.